Greetings and salutations, everyone. I hope everyone is doing well today. Today I have a very exciting and terrifying upload to share with you all. Before we get into it though, a couple links. As you know, I rely on Patreon, PayPal, and my merch to help the channel to continue to grow and go. The links to Patreon and PayPal are in the description below. My merch is displayed directly under the video. Also, Dogman Frightening Encounters, Volume 1 through 3, the audiobook versions. They were written and researched by Tom Lyons, narrated and produced by me, Jeff Nadolny. Those audiobooks are available on Audible, Amazon, and iTunes, the links to which are also in the description as well. And finally, last but definitely not least, if you'd really like to help support this channel to continue to grow and go, simply subscribe. It does not cost you a cent. Click the like button, it only takes half a second. And please leave a comment. Why, you ask? Because all of these things, they really do matter. And guys, they help a lot. Now, everyone, I have taken far too much of your time. Let's get on with today's upload, shall we? Alright guys, today's upload is dedicated to a friend of mine, and you will soon see why, whose name is Paul Evans Patterson Jr. And he wrote this amazing book called The Legendary Pine Barrens. Now, if you guys have not read this book, I encourage you guys to go out and pick it up, because it is amazing, mind-blowing, terrifying, historic events that occurred in this huge forested area in New Jersey. Now, I met Paul. I reached out to him because I had actually seen him on another YouTube channel, far bigger than mine, far bigger than most, actually way bigger than any cryptid channel, to be honest with you. And it's not a cryptid channel, it's a paranormal research channel. I reached out to Paul and I said, you know, I saw you on this channel. I'd like to talk to you. He and I spoke, and an instant friendship was formed. He had never heard of Dogman. He has been researching the haunts of the Pine Barrens, which, as many of you know, the legend of the Jersey Devil. As some months go on, Paul then realizes, hey, I really am starting to think that a lot of these sightings of this Jersey Devil may be a Dogman. Large muzzle, ears, and people might say, well, Jeff, Paul, the Jersey Devil flies. The Dogman can jump exceedingly high, as we all know. And after thinking about it for some time, I really agreed with him. I said, you know, you've got something there. You're probably right. Friendship was born. Just a couple of days ago, I received an email from a subscriber out of New Jersey. And this is one of the most strangest encounters I have heard in a very long time. And at the end of this encounter, after time processing what occurred years back while he was a teenager, he realized that quite possibly Paul Patterson Jr. is onto something, and the Jersey Devil may just be a Dogman. Let's get into today's first subscriber submitted encounter. James Leeds, aka the Jersey Devil. I'm not big on writing long emails. I've sat on this and other things for decades now. There are pictures that I sent you of the Leeds family plot across from the historic town of Smithville in Galway, New Jersey. At the end of this submission, I'll share those pictures with you guys. You know who they are, as many others do as well. Now, I've been listening to your channel for months, day and night. I know there are many people who watch this who are like me and have had some type of experience, but they are just too afraid to talk about it because they don't want to sound crazy. I'll only tell you that growing up, I had a bunch of experiences, a few with spirits that haunted my grandmother's house. That was well known throughout my family, and it was really no big deal because we were used to it. My entire family has had some type of supernatural experience, from seeing UFOs to being assaulted or seeing ghosts. I remember trying to explain to my friends when I was younger about my grandmother's house, and I remember the ridicule. So I kept the experiences to myself or only shared them with other family members. Well, I'll say most of the experiences. There's a couple things that I've experienced that I have never said a thing to anyone about. Growing up in the area of Galway Township, you heard the name James Leeds on a daily basis because Jimmy Leeds Road is one of the main roads traveled through Galway Township. You would be surprised how many people don't know that Jimmy Leeds is actually the Jersey Devil. I moved with my family to Galway Township from Atlantic City when I was a young child. I went to a Catholic school and I took the bus to school every day with other kids that lived in the township. Some of these kids lived on Leeds Point Road. I can remember 3 occasions when kids would get on the bus and they would be upset because there were scratches going on in the back of their house or something was climbing on their roof at night. Of course, they said it was the Jersey Devil, and as a child, imagination runs wild, and considering they live down the street from where it is said to be born, why not? I lived on the street where no less than 10% of the family on that street, or people on that street, had the last name of Leeds. And yeah, they were all somehow related to the infamous Leeds family. I can also tell you that there were many old-timers who lived on that street, who I got to know and would tell me many stories about sightings of the infamous Jersey Devil. A couple of these stories stuck out to me because they really scared me. Nothing too crazy, but one in particular. Someone was driving down Moss Mill Road before there were a few houses there, mostly fields and woods. As this person was driving down Moss Mill Road, they had the urge to look to the left side of their pickup truck they were driving, in which they were going 40 miles an hour. There was something running on the side of the road just next to their pickup truck. They accelerated to 65 miles an hour and this thing kept up with them, and then just disappeared into a large patch of woods at the end of Moss Mill Road, where it runs into Leeds Point Road. The second experience that I remember was a state trooper. He was doing a routine patrol in the area of Scott's Landing. Scott's Landing is a little side road right off of Leeds Point Road, which gives you access to the bay. Apparently, this state trooper had been seeing something back there, and it scared him so much that he actually went into cardiac arrest. I never checked that story out, but I can tell you the person who told me is actually a former New Jersey state trooper. For some reason, when we were in high school, we found a new fascination with the Jersey Devil. This had occurred because a few of us had gone out to Oktoberfest celebration in the historic town of Smithville. When we left that celebration, we had to park next to a church, which was across the street. And that's when we saw it. The Leeds family plot. And to the left of the large gravestone that said Leeds, there was an older, smaller one that said James Leeds, 1797 to 1803. There was another stone in front of that one. That one said, "He lives again." I will never forget seeing that. So I did what every fearless, obnoxious high school student would do. I went back later that night and I stole both of those headstones. Now, I had taken these headstones because we used to have keg parties in a patch of woods across from the restaurant, which is no longer there, called Senior Rattlers. We used to have bonfires and do what high school kids do. We had brought the tombstones back into the woods close to where we would make the bonfire. Myself and another friend carried and hid the tombstones deep into those woods. When we had laid them down, we put leaves, branches over top of them to camouflage them. I purposely marked trees because we did not take a path. We pretty much made our own, so these would be hidden and no one would take them. Nobody knew that we had taken them. Nobody knew that we were putting them behind there. We had plans to have a bonfire that night and bring them out to the party with JD, as we used to call him. I will never forget that me and my friend John went there early. We went to retrieve those tombstones and followed the markings I had left on the trees. When we'd gotten to the area, you could see all of the branches and leaves that we had carefully laid atop to camouflage them. They were still there and did not look a bit out of place. I couldn't believe, nor John. When we started moving things, the tombstones were gone. We couldn't accuse each other of playing a joke because we hadn't left each other's side from the time we hid them, because he was actually staying with me and my parents at the time. After we had gotten over the shock and disbelief, we jokingly said they must have come back for them. We didn't become afraid because we felt challenged. So when you challenge a couple of 18-year-old kids who love trouble and love alcohol just as much, what do you think we did? That's right. We went back and dug that SOB up. I know what you're thinking because I've heard it from people before. He wasn't buried there. That was just a gag. I'm going to tell you what happened when we went and dug it up. You tell me if this sounds like a gag. As we got a few more friends to come with us, with the promise of a good time with a couple of cases of beer and a couple of bottles of Jack, so we could dig up old JD. We arrived at the cemetery at 11 p.m. There were 6 of us. I jumped in first and started digging with a pickaxe to loosen the dirt, then with a shovel. After 45 minutes, I hit something hard and initially thought it was either a log or some miscellaneous gravel. I was wrong. As we continued to dig, we found there were 12-inch by 4-foot slabs that were set in every which way. We had no idea at the time why in the hell these giant slabs would be over someone's grave. After we took 6 slabs out, we got down about 4 feet when we hit a gigantic slab of marble. I will tell you, we were absolutely elated because it had taken us nearly 4 hours to get to that point. We had a flashlight, and I'll share with you what I saw. I was the one who dusted the slab off because we could see it had a little bit of moonlight. There was something engraved on it. As one of my friends held the flashlight, I began to dust the slab off with my hand. And to this day, what I saw gave me goosebumps. There was this satanic-looking engraving of the sun. I instantly felt this crazy feeling of dread, so much so that I hopped right out of the hole. At that exact moment, my friend's parents' car alarms started going off, and the lights and horn were going off uncontrollably. At that same instant, there was an old shuttle van that was parked next to that church. I remember it was a 78 Chevrolet. It was sitting there for years in the same spot, flat tires and Morrison algae growing all over the windows. It sounded like a diesel engine in it was trying to turn over, but nobody was inside the van. Under normal circumstances, you would think that this would be enough to scare a bunch of young kids. Between the testosterone and the jack, we left about, for the most part, and went and got crowbars. And you guessed it, we started to pry it open. I can tell you that it took us 90 minutes just to find the edges and dig out the walls of that grave so we could pry the lid off. When we did pry that lid off, we opened it ever so slightly, and I was overcome with this indescribable smell of old death and something I can't explain. I can also share that I was hit with this surreal feeling and this overwhelming urge to leave. And that's exactly what I did. Now, I didn't want to tell you that Galway Township was not nearly as developed, and there was very little traffic that went through there. The cemetery and church were in great disrepair and not being used at the time. We really weren't concerned about getting caught, and even if we did get caught, I don't think we were concerned about that, because I think we believed if you were going to get in trouble, why not get in trouble digging up the Jersey Devil? At around 5:30 a.m., I told my friends that I was leaving and suggested they do the same. Surprisingly, they agreed. The beer and liquor had taken its toll, and we were all physically exhausted from all of the work we had done that night. We quickly laid the slaps back down into the hole and put much of the dirt back into place to conceal everything with fallen leaves. We were going back the next night. I remember coming into my parents' house at around 7:15 in the morning, covered in mud, dirt, with leaves in my hair. My mom looked at me with her normal face of disapproval, because she knew that at that time of my life, I was closer to a feral child than the one she raised. I remember she said to me, "Leave your clothes on the back porch, get in the shower," because I was filthy and smelled like a wino. Back in those days, I could put it away and take a 2-hour power nap, wake up, and do it all over again. I truly used to believe the less that you remember from the night before, the better time you had. I quickly called a couple of my buddies who helped with the big dig the night before, and we were quickly making plans to go back and finish the job. We set the plan up to go back earlier than we did that night before. Whatever was under those slabs was coming with us, whether it liked it or not. Throughout that day, I really started to think about the line I had crossed. I really started to get this bad feeling. A really bad feeling. At around 5:30 p.m., everybody was getting together, and we were doing a preliminary with a couple of cases of beer and some vodka, so we could find the courage and ambition to finish the job. I went down to the bulkhead in a town called Absincan, where we used to meet to drink before we would go and cause chaos. I knew that I was not going back. I didn't know how I was talking my way out of it, but I was not going back there. As the beer flowed and time quickly approached, I let it be known that I wasn't going. I said that I was going to spend some time with a girl I was dating. I was very surprised that my friends didn't fight me on this. After all, I was the mastermind behind it. Now that I reflect on everything, I think they wish they didn't go back either. Unfortunately, a few of them did. I'm not going to give you all of the details about what transpired that night. The only thing that I'm going to share is that they did in fact take a body from that grave. The only thing that I was told about the body and the box, that it was a deformed child. It had an oblong skull, rather deformed, with what looked like calcium deposits on parts of the skull. They took the rotting wooden box and put it in my friend's brand new Ford Bronco 2. They took it to the bonfire spot, and they said they gave that SOB a Viking funeral. In other words, they threw the grave, or the body and the wooden box, in the bonfire. Now let's talk about what happened afterwards to all that was involved, and I can tell you that it was not good. I can also tell you that half of those involved are dead. The other half, well, let's just say our lives didn't turn out as bright as our futures said they would. I will tell you that my friend's brand new truck had this smell that no matter what he did, including changing the carpet and headliner, he could not get rid of the stench. Just like the Seinfeld episode, that was the least of his worries. I felt a constant negative energy with me. I said nothing to no one. I said nothing to no one except this very moment. I'm going to try to be brief and tell you the rest of the experience that led me to this moment. About 2 months after digging up that grave, I was riding my CR500. Those of you who don't know what a CR500 is, it's the largest and fastest dirt bike Honda made. It was nicknamed the Widowmaker. That's just, those of you who ride will know what I'm talking about. They are extremely fast and a very dangerous bike. I was pretty deep in the Wharton State Forest. I can tell you that at the time it was early 90s and there were a lot of satanic rituals being performed in the forest. I'd come across many ritual sites deep within those woods with antlers and dead animals. I wasn't too concerned if I did run into any of these worshippers because my dirt bike was hell on wheels itself. I didn't have to worry about sticking on any trails because the bike was so powerful. It made its own, and I'm thankful for that. One day I took my bike extra deep and extra far from where I usually rode. I went through towns like Green Bank, Chatsworth, and all the way down to Manchester. I actually got lost. Fuel was definitely a concern. I knew which direction the parkway was, so my plan was just to cut through the forest and I would eventually run into the Golden State Parkway. I didn't know where exactly when this started, but I got this feeling of dread and the hairs on my arms and neck started to stand on end. Out of nowhere as I was riding, something told me, don't look behind you and go as fast as you can. And that's what I did. I had no idea how I made it through that forest without a low branch taking my head off or my front wheel hitting a fallen tree. I somehow made it to some type of trail that was really close to the parkway because I could see ahead on the trail vehicles going through the trees up in a distance. I remember that this trail had a sharp 90-degree turn just ahead of me. I could see it as I was quickly approaching, and I started to slow down, and at that point I decided that I was close enough to the road I could briefly stop and take a look behind me. I wish I didn't do that. My dirt bike was loud, and I was coming up into some trees. Behind me, I could hear snapping branches getting louder. I had to lean up against this tree because I'm only 5'6", and that bike is definitely too big for me. I popped it into neutral as I took the turn and hit the brakes just enough to catch a small sapling to lean it against. I can see to the left of the trail all types of movement. Up high in the trees, branches falling down everywhere, or at least pieces of them. What I saw next still scares the living daylight out of me. If I hadn't found your channel or others like yours, I would have thought that I was either crazy or having bad hallucinations from whatever reason. What I saw was this gigantic black or really dark brown thing drop down into the path with such fluid motion it looked unrealistic. I was probably 50 yards away, but one thing I will definitely remember were its eyes and those ears. They looked like daggers. This thing dropped down and looked through my soul with those eyes, and I remember what popped into my head was that it knew me and it was going to enjoy watching me suffer. I can tell you that I watched 1 second of its movement after that, and it looked like it was CGI. It moved so fast that it looked fake. Thank God that that motorcycle was running, because I ripped through those woods and I knew it was coming right behind me. I can tell you that somebody was protecting me, because I pulled out onto the shoulder of the parkway, and at that time it was one of the few sections that didn't have a metal guardrail on it. I managed to get up on the parkway and rode that thing well over 100 miles an hour until I was nowhere near any woods at all. I actually got off of exit 38, which I believe is Atlantic City. Now, really quick, some of you people are probably saying, Jeff, a dirt bike going 100 miles an hour? Stock, they went like 90. And if you just did minor mods to it, you could easily get that bike to go 100. I had a friend who actually lost his leg on one. And this guy who was sharing this was 5'6" at the time, so he probably wasn't heavy. So he was definitely able to reach those speeds. I didn't care about the cops chasing me, because I absolutely believed that this thing was chasing me on the side of the parkway as I was going down the parkway. I can tell you that what I now believe is that what all those people were seeing at Leeds Point and the Pine Barrens and Wharton State Forest were those things, Dogman or werewolves or whatever the hell you want to call them. I can also tell you that my beliefs in regards to James Leeds is that they just may have been some type of witchcraft component tied into them. I also can share that I think something attached itself to me and every one of us that was involved. Although my life is now fantastic and filled with many things that were set in place, I believe they were meant to torment and eventually destroy me. I'm not a religious person. I can share, though, that I do believe in God. And when this curse left me, and made no mistake, I believe that's exactly what it was, cursed. When it left me, only left because I asked for forgiveness. It was always in the back of my mind why my life was in constant turmoil, when my upbringing was fantastic and my future looked brighter than most, as did all of my friends regardless of our antics when we were younger. I am the lucky one because I am still alive and my life has never been so good. My other friends that are still alive had bad old things like alcohol addiction and not so great health. Those that died were battling addiction and were in poor health. I don't know why I was fortunate to pull through and get through this tumultuous life, but I am forever grateful. I know that people will hear my experience if you do in fact share this and have doubts, because possibly it may be unbelievable to them. And I know that I am a halfway decent writer, so they may think it's BS. This, though, is definitely real. I have many other experiences of what I endured because what we did. I don't doubt one single experience that people share on your channel, Jeff. I don't care how unbelievable they sound. If people had a supernatural experience then, and only then, will they understand. There are definitely things in this world that we may never understand. Thanks, Jeff. I really do enjoy your channel. Guys, when I first read that experience, I have cold chills on my back right now, because it brought me back to my experience with the Ouija board when I was a kid with my cousins, and what that board warned us and told us was going to happen, and it did. 2 of my cousins are now dead. One friend that was there that evening is battling addiction, active addiction. He is spiritually and probably emotionally dead. I know that he's not doing well in life. And I don't mean monetary wise, because you don't need money to be well in life. You just need to be happy with who you are, right? But I know he's not. I was diagnosed with my illness. I almost died. My cousins, 2 of them, said they saw dreams or had dreams of hounds of hell chasing them, which the Ouija board told us we were going to see. I saw a Dogman in 1994. I don't know what my other friend or my cousin's older friend saw, because I was the youngest of them all, so they were all older than me. But yeah, it did. It felt like there was this attachment, you know? Just maybe there is that spiritual or negative spiritual, I guess, would be the best way to say it. Negative spirits connection to these creatures. Not all of them, because maybe there are different versions. I don't know. You know, we don't really know. It's only a belief. And, you know, I giggle when I see people say, Dogman is Satan's child. Dogman is this. And they say it so adamantly, but they don't really know. It's called a belief. It's a theory. But I do believe that there are physical dogmen that lived on this earth well before we were here. I do believe that there are things that come through portals that look like dogmen. And possibly there are some that are just attached to the spirit realm, which would be the alternate side of God and his teachings. And I liked how he ended it, because no matter what the experience sounds like, who am I to judge that experience? I know what I saw. I wasn't there when this person had their experience, so I can't tell them it didn't happen. And that would make me a hypocrite if I did. Just an amazing experience, a horrifying experience, truly horrifying. And I don't condone what they did at all with the desecration of gravestones and the coffin. And you can't just say, well, they were kids, because it's just not cool, but they did it. And in fact, they paid a price. So, yeah. And now, that brings me to what Paul shared with me, how he believes the Dogman may be mistaken for the Jersey Devil. It's not the first time I've heard things like that. I mean, Tim Coonbo Baker had to go back in his research 20 years after to look at Sasquatch experiences and later categorize them as Dogman experiences. These creatures are real. If there are different types, I do believe that there are. But either or, they are real. They are dangerous. And they do hunt human. I mean, what other creature do we know that usually runs aside of a vehicle, keeping pace with it? We've all heard the Dogman experiences where they keep pace with a car. His description of it, its eyes were just pure evil. And it had dagger-like ears. It's a very interesting way to describe a Dogman's ears, but it is fairly accurate if you think about it. Anyway, I wanted to share this experience with you all. And before I say goodnight, here are those pictures he shared of the Leeds burial plot. Check them out. Alright guys, I hope you all enjoyed today's upload as much as I enjoyed sharing it with you. Really horrifying experience. And like I said, I don't condone what they did as teenagers. Nor do I think he was bragging. I think he was just sharing his experiences and what he did. As teenagers, we do dumb things, unfortunately. I don't know why. But we do, nevertheless. These monsters, these creatures, whatever they are real. And I think there is more to it than we could even describe. I've heard some strange things. Speaking to a gentleman one time, and this is along that religious aspect, and I do believe in God. I do believe Jesus walked the earth. Just because I say the Great Spirit at the end, it's just my thing. Because I do believe that there is just one Almighty looking down on us. But I hadn't been to church in a very long time, so I'm a little rusty on things. Received my confirmation, 10th grade, I think. And that was it. You know, that's all my parents wanted. But I do remember certain things, and it was interesting. This person told me, and he worked with the state troopers in South Carolina. Very intelligent man, computer whiz. And what he said to me was, quite possibly, Dogman and Bigfoot can be possessed by demonic spirits. Soulless creatures, these Dogman, Bigfoot. Possibly. This is theory, right? I mean, we don't know 100%. We just have theory, and no theory is better than another. That's one thing that I know for a fact. But when he said it and he described it to me, I was like, yeah. I'm like, what if the ones with red eyes are the ones that are possessed? Because we hear some with yellow eyes, we hear some with this blue, I've heard with blue, purple, or a purplish, but that may be light reflecting off of those eyes. But nevertheless, what if? Stayed with me for 10-15 minutes and then gone. But it was a theory, and every once in a while I think about that theory, right? Because who knows? It could just be real. It could be a puzzle piece. It doesn't fit my puzzle yet. Maybe in next year, 2 days from now, it will, but as of right now, it doesn't. So I keep that puzzle piece tucked aside for when I need it. And that's what I encourage you guys to do. Guys, I'd like to thank you all for all of your support of this channel. We have really come a long way, and I only want to grow bigger and learn more from you guys, because the information you guys have and the theories you have really help us all. So, thank you. Guys, stay safe, stay healthy, stay happy, and may the Great Spirit watch over us all, and may He guide us down that path that we call life.